stay away from that. So identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. So it really tries to look much more at resiliency than just stopping people at or bad actors before entering the system. And we have a report that Gartner put out that about 30% of companies across the US, that's small, medium, and large companies, are using the framework today to implement their cybersecurity programs, to be able to talk with the C-suite all the way to the bits and bytes folks. And I think that's critically important because I could sit down with any of you all and talk about a TLS implementation, or I could talk with you about the pros and cons of a cryptographic authentication or a biometric authentication. But if businesses and organizations don't have a culture of cybersecurity that starts with senior management, we don't really address those challenges across the nation, and we don't really hit on the trust and the security we all collectively need for the digital economy. So the framework gives an opportunity to talk at all of those levels. It has as its basis those standards and best practices of which to build, what goes beyond that. There's also a measurement component to it, but the measurement component is something that you do internally, where you think, am I incredibly proactive? Am I looking at bad things as they come and changing my infrastructure before they get in? Or am I back putting in the basics, and where do I want to be? So the framework has been picked up and used by a lot of folks in industry. Often there's a question about using it within the federal government, and what does that mean versus using the NIST RMF that Ron and his team have developed. We have a guide actually coming out fairly soon that gives you a mapping between the NIST RMF and the framework. And so it's there to support federal agencies who are implementing RMF and who report back using some of the framework kinds of metrics that are out there today. That should be out in the next couple of months, as well as an update to the framework, Framework 1.1. We have also recently introduced the Baldrige cybersecurity developer. So we had a program for quality measurement, getting back to those measurement roots of NIST, that helped organizations improve their manufacturing quality or the healthcare quality within their organizations or whatever their core business was. And we took those principles and applied them to cybersecurity. So it's a way to measure cybersecurity quality within your organization. Again, none of these programs are external kinds of certifications. Because this is all about risk management, it's something you need to do for your organization, because your organization understands its risks and what it's willing to accept and what it's not. So we've done a lot of work with the framework. And then recently, we started the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. So I think when they were reading my titles, NIST gives you more titles as a way to keep you at work 2 more hours each evening. So you can stack them up and they're really nice, but it's just more work. But our National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence is a partnership with industry. And what we're doing there is working with different business sectors to understand what kinds of business challenges, not technical challenges, business challenges they're having in cybersecurity, And then looking at appropriate architectures and standards underneath of those, and actually building them out with real-world products and capabilities, so you can think about how to tackle this challenge in your own organization. So we have our traditional 800 series guides. A lot of people are familiar, a lot of people speak SP 800. These are actually 1800 series. An example, we just finished a secure email build. And we did that with 4 companies, and so they're commercially available products that implement some of the domain name service standards and implement security with email so that you can have both confidentiality and integrity. And as part of this, we integrated strong credentials so that you also, with that integrity, you also get authenticity of the signer of the email before it comes to you, and works well with PIV cards and things like that. We're working on a bill right now at the center that takes a look at derived personal identity verification PIV. How do you use your PIV card with your phone, your mobile device, or your tablet? They don't work all that well. I've watched federal agencies try to build capabilities to have a card that's inserted with a rubber band around the phone or something along those lines, but it doesn't work so well. So we've created some guidelines on how you can do that, and we're actually implementing them out at the center and documenting them so you can work with your suppliers to have that same capability. And we actually tell you this, the folks that we work with on this, in cases of interest to you. The point is, it's about business first and technology second. It's not about, here's a document, go read it, but here's something that you can see and touch. We have a use case that we've been working on with the healthcare community on infusion pumps as an example medical device from the IoT space. How do you take medical devices and put them in hospital systems, given some of the challenges? What kind of security should you expect out of the product producers? And what do you need to do when you put it in an environment to continue to make it secure? We are not saying in these documents it's the only way to do something. We are saying here is a way where we started with a risk management approach, identified the architecture and the security controls, and then built to it. And we have a number of partners at the center who kind of come in and they bring their latest technologies and put them in place for us to be able to use at the center. So it really is an important collaboration. We've been working with U.S. Coast Guard to do a profile of the framework at the center for some of their folks in different port authorities. So it's an opportunity for government and industry and academia to come together and to be able to build out these sort of capabilities. Today, a number of my colleagues are working with the Commission for Enhancing National Cybersecurity. That was another executive order that just came out. And we're expecting a report from the Commission on December 1st that goes to the next administration that takes a look at priority areas, not just both within the U.S. government, but then across the nation, and makes recommendations. So I think this is going to be an interesting 6 months, given the kinds of recommendations we see coming out in cybersecurity. And we're going to see a lot of changes and advances in this space as we think about IoT, as we think about the changes that are occurring, that touch every aspect of our lives. NIST has a number of capabilities that we're bringing together to look at the IoT space from the networking aspect, from the usability aspect, from the cryptographic aspect, and as well as vulnerability management, all for IoT, all in cybersecurity. So collectively, we have come a long way, but from my perspective, we still have a number of challenges, and we really all need to work together. Why? Because nobody owns the entire infrastructure. What I do in my space, in my environment, affects you and your organization. So the changes that we're seeing in government, where government's becoming, really working hard to be a leader in cybersecurity, the changes that we're seeing in critical infrastructure. And I got to tell you, we got some comments the other day, because everything we put out, we get comments on, and it was from the Fashion Cybersecurity Council. So people who are involved in fashion today are thinking about cybersecurity. We are working with the folks in retail and hospitality. Why? Because that infrastructure is around all of us. As we're working with transportation, think about the changes that are going to occur in the next 10 years. As we have cars that drive themselves, 16-year-olds are not going to be excited to get a driver's license. They're just going to call a car and it's going to come up and take them someplace. These are monumental changes in our society. They're monumental changes in our economy, but to get them right, we have to have the trust and confidence in those, and cybersecurity is a critical underpinning that we all have to work together in order to get there. I think we're on a good path down that road, but I think everybody in this room is in, from a professional and a job security perspective, in really good shape. And so with that, I'd like to take some questions, if I may. No questions? Yes?
So I was just at the Kansas City conference for NICE. How long do you think it will take for all the agencies to implement what they're talking about in the framework? They're trying to match, key personnel to core capabilities that they should have in cybersecurity training. And I know that I've talked to Rodney and Clarence who's going to do the outreach, but how long will it take for that to work its way into what the agencies are doing, trying to get that done?
So the question is about not the framework for improving critical infrastructure, but the NICE framework, which takes a look at skills and capabilities and to be able to match them back across the U.S. government with different jobs and jobs classifications. And the question is, first of all, how long do we think it will take to link those kinds of skills and abilities back to job classifications? And then, in my opinion, the second important question in that is that we have qualified people with those skills and abilities that map back to those jobs. And how long are we projecting that takes? I think if Rodney were standing here, or if OMB were standing here, or OPM, they would probably give you an answer that they're working very diligently to make that happen now that the tools available and the different agencies are coming together. My answer to you on that is, I think that cybersecurity has become so critical across the government that we have with changes in administration, I think all federal agency seniors are going to be very dedicated to cybersecurity, and that they're going to care very much about this, and they're going to be reporting up to their boss on this. And because of that inflection point and that kind of change, I think it's going to come much faster than, for example, we saw the PIV cards being instantiated across the US government. I think that there's a sense of urgency across the government now that we have not seen in the past. Have you all taken a look at that document where it looks at skill sets? It's really an important document for all of us to think about for what we're doing today and the kind of workforce we're going to have 2 and 5 years from now. Other questions? Yes.
Donna, what cybersecurity related work is doing internationally or
So the question is, what kind of work is NIST doing internationally and with other countries? With the framework for improving critical infrastructure cybersecurity, we have worked with countries all around the world, a number in Europe. So, for example, the government of Italy adopted the framework as its core centerstone in what they're doing. The same is happening in the Pacific Rim with some of the countries there that are picking up and using it. So individually, we've continued to work very hard in that space. We work very hard with standards bodies, including the International Engineering Task Force, IETF, ANSI, and ISO, as a way to take standards and provide a universal platform where everybody can compete. So we continue very strong standards engagement at NIST with all of our work and to support other work. So ad hoc wireless networks we see all over, right? Two of our people are primary editors of the IEEE standards in that space that are used universally. We've doubled our efforts in cryptography because, as many of you may know, our crypto standards came under some charge over the past couple of years with some of the Snowden revelations. I have personally been working with other national governments to understand their requirements in cryptography and to be able to listen to that and to be able to work together so that we have a platform and we're all asking for the same kinds of things. So it's an important field for us. And it gives our industries, through standards and best practices, the opportunity to compete internationally, which becomes incredibly important for the US government to get the kinds of capabilities and asks that we have, that we need for our environment, because frankly, they can't afford to build one-offs anymore. Other questions? So typically I get one on what's really changing in this space. And I think one of the big changes to keep an eye on is quantum information science. I think from the NIST perspective, we believe it's no longer a science question, a physics question on when we may see quantum computing, but it's an engineering question, so more of a when than an if. What does that mean to you all? It means as you're building in capabilities for things like identity management or vulnerability management or things like secure email, etc., that you need to have crypto agility so that you're able to change crypto algorithms over time, and that it's not the endeavor that it's been in the past to be able to change crypto algorithms and swap them out. So some of those changes are very real for us. Any other questions? Yes?
What are your thoughts around blockchain?
Sure. So those are, so you can tell the technology questions are my favorite ones because I asked them of myself, but we got a question on blockchain and what do we think of blockchain? NIST recently held a workshop on blockchain and for healthcare. And blockchain, like anything else in cryptography, always looks like the panacea. But it's hard to implement, and it's hard to implement correctly. And it's like the old microbiology thing. Remember when we all took microbiology and they used to say garbage in, garbage out. If you contaminate your stuff, then you know what you get out, you don't know. So if you don't have good data sets coming in a blockchain environment, it's not going to give you the kinds of capabilities coming out on the other side that you think you're getting, and it's really hard to back up the process through that. So blockchain is an important technology, but maybe it's been oversold a little. Yes?
Two quick questions. One, any guesstimate on a timeline when we'll see homomorphic encryption? And the second one is, what about for the ever-increasing power of CPUs to come up with a slow hash algorithm to give us a little more time?
Right. So the first question was on homomorphic encryption and when do we expect to see a fully homomorphic kind of capability. DARPA and IARPA have done some outstanding work on fully homomorphic encryption. So when we say homomorphic encryption, just to give people a base of what we're talking about, it really is being able to keep the data encrypted, but still be able to answer certain kinds of questions around it. And in order for it to be useful and practical, we're still many, many years away. There's a lot of speed and processing that has to, improvements that we have to see. But there's also partially homomorphic encryption, because the crypto people like to come up with, you know, well, we can sort of get there. And there are some partially homomorphic capabilities that I think we're going to see more and more embedded in cloud technology and virtualized devices, so that you're only decrypting certain pieces of information inside of a VM cloud, and you don't have that full, complete exposure of data. And your second question was on hash speeds, and when are we going to see better hash algorithms to address the quantum question?